हुज्जती आज़म सरदार इमामान के तू है अज़हमा आलम सुल्तान दु आलम कुरान मुअज़्ज़म तू सबसे मुअख्खर है और सबसे मुक़द्दम तू मतलई अनवार क़ियामत है खुदावंद हर आशिक़ व आरिफ है तेरे नूर से खुसन एहसान करम तेरा है बहरी मुहीत जैसा ला बल्कि करम तेरा है फलकी बसीर जैसा
नूर तजल्ला शान सुल्तान मोहम्मद शाह उन वक्त शही मर्दान सुल्तान मोहम्मद शाह अक़लिंग सबकर उस्ताद रुए खिज़र छिलर साक़ी जाछन के गरास कुरान सुल्तान मोहम्मद शाह
Ya Ali Madad to everyone. My name is Danish Ali.
My name is Sabika Ali.
And we would like to welcome you on this auspicious occasion of Mawlana Sultan Muhammad Shah, Hazrat A'zamul Aimma's 145th birthday celebration.
Danish, what does this title, A'zamul A'imma, mean?
Well, let me tell you its meaning, but not in my own words. Mawlana Hazir Imam remembers Mawlana Sultan Muhammad Shah by addressing the Jamaat on July 26, 1957 in London as, quote, "You have lost the finest Imam we have had," unquote. Azamul Aimma in Arabic language means the greatest of all Imams.
Let me also share an occasion when Mawlana Hazir Imam remembered his grandfather in verses. God, many memories come to our minds as we think of him. He achieved in his life for our community that which could only have been accomplished only in a period of many generations. The tributes that the world has paid him bear honest testimony to his great life and work.
In this Jashn Mubarak, we are extremely privileged to have with us today Al-Wais Dr. Faqir Muhammad Sahib and Al-Waiza Dr. Rashida Noor Muhammad Sahiba, who are gracing us for this Jashn as an honorable chief guests. Welcome Dr. Sahib and Rashida Sahiba.
Let's start our Jashn Mubarak formally with the recitation of verses of Surah Al-Qadr from Holy Quran with this translation. I request Durradan and Salman Nasir to please come forward and recite the holy verses.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنا أنزلناه في ليلة القدر وما أدراك ما ليلة القدر ليلة القدر خير من ألف شهر تنزل الملائكة والروح فيها بإذن ربهم من كل أمر سلام هي حتى مطلع الفجر صدق الله العلي العظيم.
By the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful. Behold, we sent it down on the night of power. And what shall teach thee what is the night of power? The night of power is better than 1,000 months. The angels and the spirit descend by the leave of their Lord upon every command. Peace it is till the rising of dawn.
Jazakumallah. Now I invite Anusha Hussain from Dushanbe, Tajikistan to recite the holy farman of Mawlana Hazir Imam Shah Karim Al-Hussaini Salawatullah alayhi.
Farman Mubarak Jamaat. Recite the holy salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Nur Mawlana Shah Karim Al-Hussaini Hazir Imam Salawatullah alayhi has made the following farman. My beloved spiritual children, the farman I will make this morning is important and I would like you to pay great attention to it. From time to time during the past 15 years, I have reminded my Jamaat to remember that in this life there are two paths, neither of which must be forsaken. The soul is created and is given physical form, and we are told in our faith that during the time in which the soul is given this physical form, which is the time in which we are physically alive on this earth, There are certain things that must be done in order to live in accordance with our faith. There are certain things which must be done in a physical sense, and there are other things which must be done in a spiritual sense. And our faith is quite clear as to what are the responsibilities, both in a physical and a spiritual sense, on our spiritual children. There are things that you are told to do, and there are things that you are told not to do during your physical lifetime, and these are generally in order to improve the physical, worldly conditions of yourselves, your children, and the spiritual children who will follow you afterwards. And there are things which you are told not to do because they would harm the Jamaat or you individually. And this is true of your spiritual lives. In the practice of your faith, there are things you are told to do, and there are things you are told not to do. And at the end of your lives, you must ask yourselves the question: have I fulfilled during my lifetime my physical and material responsibilities as well as my spiritual responsibilities? And remember that you will be judged on both. If you fail in one or in the other, you will be judged accordingly. If you have succeeded in both, I believe that during your lifetime you will first of all find happiness. And I don't mean material happiness, I mean spiritual happiness, because you will know that you have done what you have been told to do. If you fail, you will no doubt find problems and difficulties, and I am mentioning this Farman this morning because my spiritual children here represent the material and the spiritual parts of our Jamaat's lives. I do not want imbalance, that is, lack of attention or concern with either parts of your lives. And the reason why in recent years I have made farmans to you from time to time about your material well-being is that I have believed that in India, like in other parts of the world, serious attention has been necessary to improve the living conditions of the Jamaat and of your children, and in the future of your grandchildren and great-grandchildren. But that does not mean that you must be unaware of your spiritual obligations, that you should not say your prayers when you are told to say your prayers, that you should not practice bandagi when you should practice bandagi, that you should not meet the responsibilities and the duties which you have to the Jamaat and to the Imam. And what I am saying to my spiritual children this morning is that he or she who forsakes either of the two responsibilities which are placed on you the day you are born, the responsibilities to fulfill your material and your spiritual lives, is making a mistake, and I felt it important to remind you today of this duality of the life in which we live, and that you should fulfill both responsibilities. Bombay, India, Darkhana, Tuesday, November 27, 1973. Jamaat recites Salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad.
जज़ाकिल्लाह अनोशा हुसैन। गिरिया ज़ारी से तुम सब आसमान में जा बसो, आसमान के बादशाह की मेहरबानी खूब है। गिरिया ज़ारी सहारा है नसीरा याद कर, आतिशे सूजान इश्क में रह के खूब फरियाद कर। Now I would like to invite Zahida Banu from Metroville, Karachi to lead in this Ghiriya Uzari session.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanirrahim. Malik Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. اے خدائے پاک و برتر میں بہت بیچار ہوں، ہستی سالم نہیں میں ہستی صد پار ہوں، ہستی سالم نہیں میں ہستی صد پار ہوں، ہے امید بے شمار پھر بھی دیکھو انتظار، اس غریب نا چیز کو ہے दायुमुल वक्त इंतजार, इस गरीब नाचीज़ को है दायुमुल वक्त इंतजार। कादिर मुतलक है तू, हम बहुत नाचार हैं, बशरी कमजोरी है हम में, इसलिए बीमार हैं। बशरी कमजोरी है हम में, इसलिए बीमार हैं। गिरिया वो जारी सहारा है नसीरा याद कर, गिरिया वो जारी सहारा है नसीरा याद कर। आतिशे सूज़ान इश्क में रह के खूफर याद कर, आतिशे सूज़ान इश्क में रह के खूफर याद कर। या खुदावंद पाक, या नूर मौलाना शाह करीम अल हुसैनी हाजिर इमाम, या मौला, it's never easy to have you, your recognition, your love, your affection. In fact, we have nothing within us at all, no ability, no attraction that can catch your attention. It can never be us to reach you with our full of mistakes existence, but there is only one thing, your mercy surrounds everything. Ya Mola, you yourself have told us that your mercy supersedes your anger. We fear your anger, Mola. We beg your mercy, because without it we cannot live, we cannot breathe, we cannot survive like a moment, like your beloved ones. Today, one huge fraction of human has lost faith in God. They have denied believing in religion and God. There is infidelity and disbelief everywhere now. But still, there are few people who submit themselves in front of you, who beg your mercy, your satisfaction, and your special blessing. Ya Mola, never leave us and bless us with your best spiritual blessings. Ya Mola, you already know, you already see what's within us, what our soul demands, what our spiritual condition is. Lift us from such poverty, such insignificance, such weakness. Ya Mola, lift us with your grace to an exalted being. Ya Mola, bless us with your love. May your sacred love be filled in our hearts and never leave us. May it stay light, a fragrance, so that it surrounds us all the time. Ya Mola, the world and the worldly matters never stop hurting us. They continue to affect our thoughts, our life, our prayers. Ya Mola, help us in our helplessness and never leave us. Help us to stay firm on Sirat al-Mustaqim, to thrive for your Nurani Didar, to practice morning bandagi, to search for your spiritual light. Ya Mola, we have seen that you listen, you must be listened. Ya Mola, you always reply to your beloved ones. Ya Mola, never leave us not being listened. Our life shall go astray and wasted if we disconnect from you. Ya Mola Zaman, we always fear losing you. We beg you, never leave us. Ya Mola, we have so many ilmi projects. Help us to accomplish them successfully. Make all the difficulties disappear from its way. Ya Mola Zaman, accept our this weak Giryawazari in your Huzuri Pulnu. Ya Imam Zaman, Ya Mawlana, Anta Quwwati wa Anta Sanadi wa Alayka Dikali. Ya Hazir, Ya Mawjood, Ya Shah Karim Husaini, Anta Imam al-Haqul Mubin. Allahumma laka sujudi बताती शुक्र लिल्लाहि वल्हम्दुलिल्लाह शुक्र लिल्लाहि वल्हम्दुलिल्लाह.
Subhanallah, Subhanallah. Zahida Sahiba, you really melted our hearts with such a soulful Giryavzari. Let me also give you a gift, an intellectual precious gem that you must remember for your whole life. You know what Mawlana Sultan Muhammad Shah Salawatullah alayhi has guided us about the rights of all the women in the world? Mawla gave the message of equal status of women and men in Islam. In an inspiring message to the Ismailia Women's Association of Pakistan that used to be existed once in 1953, Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah Salawatullah alayhi proceeded to tell women to agitate for their equal rights and against men. Mullah said, quote, "O my sisters, agitate, give no peace to the men till they give you religious freedom by opening mosques for prayers, not side by side with men, but in reserved quarters attached to all the mosques, so that the habit of praying public and self-respect and self-confidence become general amongst women. On that foundation of religious equality, you can then build social, economic, patriotic equality with men." Unquote. I would like to invite Sadaf Rahim from Edmonton, Canada to spotlight the guidance of Mawlana Sultan Muhammad Shah Salawatullah alayhi gave on the position of women under Islam in a foreword. He wrote,
Wiladat to everyone. Can someone confirm that you can hear me clearly?
Yes, we can hear you, Sada. Bismillah.
Amina, thank you so much. First of all, I'd like to welcome everyone to this Jashn Mubarak, and thank you, Dr. Sahib and Alwais Rashida Sahiba, for giving me this opportunity. I will share my screen. Is it visible to all?
Yes, your screen can be seen.
Okay, thank you so much. Today, I will be presenting few points from the foreword which Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah written in the book written by Sayyid Ahmed Zaid on position of women under Islam. As Khwaja, as Naeem said, that position of a woman in Islam is being really strong, and it's really different as compared to pre-Islamic stage where women used to considered as slaves, and they don't have used to have a status in the society. So in this book, the author Sayyid Ahmed Zaid written in this book, the author actually presented the scope of women under the Islamic context. In this book, he demonstrated the importance and significance of women in Islam in comparison to other religion and other sects. In this book, Imam wrote an introduction in which Imam clearly says that in Islam, women have more power and more independence and dignity as compared to, in comparison to other societies and religion, I'll say. Imam also clarified the misconception related to status of women in Islam in comparison to Western world. In this forward, Imam actually pointed out four important points, which number one is equity of the woman, like equity status of a woman, that women are equal in comparison to others. Independence, that in Islam, women given an independence to take care of their property, take care of their education, take care of their life. And the other thing is education and women, which we all know that in many time, Imam Sultan Shah, Salawatullah alayhi, pointed out a lot of time the importance of women's and education, and there are many farman, if we remember, that Imam pointed out that how education is very important for women, especially girls. And then the other, which is very important issue in Islam, which we all still struggle somewhere, is seclusion and parda under the scope of Islam. So I won't go all 4 points, but I'll be covering 2 important points, which is education and women, and then seclusion for women in Islam. Education and women. In Islam, as we all know, that education has been really important aspect for especially for women. And if we go back to space of Arabia, where women's like Prophet family used to be the pioneer to teach people and spread knowledge among other people in Arabia. If we remember that Hazrat Bibi Khatija, Bibi Fatima used to be those pioneer women who used to spread knowledge among other people in Arabia. So spreading knowledge and gaining knowledge is very much important in Islam, especially for women. And Islam gave a woman a strong intellectual position, which was missing in pre-Islamic phase. In this forward, Imam Sultan Shah said, I firmly believe that in encouraging education amongst my religious followers and in trying as far as possible to give them equality, women with men, I have carried out the spirit of holy message of my ancestor. So as you said that, as you see in this point, Imam clearly mentioned that giving education to women or giving her equal status in comparison to men is not something new which Imam bring it out. It was a message which was being carried out from our holy ancestors, from imams, from prophets. So it's been in there, but it was not well recognized. It was not much portrayed in the society until Imam Sultan Shah period, where Imam actually worked on that important aspect and portrayed in front of everyone that how important education is for the woman, and it's not something new concept. It's in Islam from very initial phase. In one of the Farman in Kalam-e-Mubin, volume 2, addressing the girls of Kandi Mohalla School, Imam said, I quote, this is why we wish the girls to be educated and clever and not to have to rely on others. Therefore, it is essential to send them to school to educate them. If the girls, through education, become smart and capable, they will be able to teach their children in the future what they know. They will be able to give them a good upbringing, which is why everybody should send their girls to school. Do not forget this. There should be no smiley girl who is not educated. A boy can go anywhere and trade and learn new skills. But where will the girls go? This is why it is very necessary to educate the girls. They should learn to read Gujarati, our religious book, writing, arithmetic, embroidery, and knitting. It is very important for girls to learn to add and subtract. It's Mumbai, 18 February 1913. Please recite Holy Salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. So if you can see in this Farman, Imam clearly outlined that education for especially for girl is very important, and same important point Imam highlighted in this book's introduction, that educating a woman in Islam is not something a new concept, but this is something a very important concept which only the Islam highlighted. If we go back to Holy Book, in Quran also got said many times about the importance of education and importance of education for women. In Quran, Surah Zamar, Surah number 39, ayah number 9, God said, can those who have knowledge and those who do not be alike? So only the wise do receive the admonition. So there's a clear distinction between two people, the one who have knowledge and one do not have a knowledge, and they cannot be alike. So if woman is educated, that woman can spread knowledge to generation. And same in one of the hadith, Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the acquisition of knowledge is binding on all Muslims, both men and women, without any discrimination. So knowledge and having education is not just for men, it's for all. It's for women and men. It's equal for both gender. Next important point which I'm gonna highlight today on this presentation is seclusion. As we all know that parda and seclusion is being considered as a part of an Islam. People think that, oh, if you belong to Islam or if you're Muslim, you must be doing parda. But in this introduction, Imam clearly raised this important point about the practice of seclusion or veil or parda. Imam said that parda or veil is a debatable issue. Imam said in this forward, the seclusion and parda are purely Oriental custom which came into Islam but have no relation with the spirit of that teaching, though undoubtedly they become part of the social system which Islam carried on from its neighboring country, such as Persia, Byzantium, and Egypt. So, in this, Imam clearly said that parda is not something in Islam, it's not something the religion of Islam teaches. Parda is something which we adopted from different countries, from different traditions, from different social system. In Quran there is no any clear ayat where God said that women need to do parda or women need to do seclusion. In Quran God said that you need to do hijab, you need to do parda of your soul, which was being misinterpreted as a cloth on face or cloth on a body. So in this book Imam really raised this important point, and Imam really said this point very nicely in a clear, fine way, that this is not Islam. This is something we adopted from different social system or neighboring countries where Islam used to spread. And also there was one speech in which in one of the speech when someone argued with Imam Sultan Shah and said that isn't the parda is the part of Muhammadian custom? And Imam said, no, it's not a Muhammadian custom. It's not a Muhammad religion who teach the concept of parda. It is the practice we adopted from different communities, and Imam highlighted some countries, that's Egypt, India, Asian country, China. So Imam said these are the practices which we adopted from different neighboring countries, but this is not something which Islam taught. And even Imam said that in different religions like Christianity, Jewish, Hinduism, they used to have the concept of seclusion, which was being adopted by people who converted from Christianity to Islam, or those who converted from Hinduism to Islam, and they carried out that custom from converting from one religion to other or from one social system to another. But in this forward, Imam clearly said that this is not what we call Islam. This is something, an Oriental custom which we adopted. In the ending of this forward, Imam stated a very deep and thoughtful message to all the readers, and I quote, "Pious and believing Muslim who really wish to understand the holy message of the Prophet and not just its passing aspect would immediately set to work with the object of bringing about the full and legitimate evolution of Muslim women in Islamic society, till such time as they can honestly hold their own with the men." So in this, Imam clearly said that if we really want to spread, or if we really want to follow the path of holy message of Hazrat Muhammad, peace be upon him, and our Imams, then we really need to work towards the Muslim women to give them their identity, to give them space to be something, to give them a space to decide independently what they want for themselves and what how they like to be represent in the society. So I thought I should share these important points, and there are many different points in this speech which Imam shared. I strongly urge everybody, it's just a one pager forward. If all can read this, they will really learn a lot about the scope of women in Islam, and then we can have some strong foundation when we go in front of others, and when people say, oh, you're Muslim, why are you not doing parda? Or you're Muslim, you must be under your husband. So those are the custom traditions people think, or misconception people have related to Islam. So if we read these speeches and if we have those references, then we can portray the true image of women in Islam. And these are the references I use for this presentation. Now floor is open for question if anyone have any questions.
Marhaba Sadaf Saiba. for enriching us with such invaluable guidance of Mawlana Sultan Muhammad Shah Salawatullah alayhi regarding the status of women in Islam. With the beginning of the era of Mawlana Sultan Muhammad Shah Salawatullah alayhi, the world started seeing numerous changes. To gain more knowledge about the physical and the spiritual changes the world experienced during the period of Mawlana Sultan Salawatullah alayhi, I would like to invite Khayal Ali Sahib from Dallas, US to review the article The Modern Resurrection of Nizari Ismaili Islam, The Reforms of the Aga Khans, written by Khalil Andani. Khayal Ali Sahib, whenever you are ready.
Yeah, Limada, just give me 1 second. Let me make sure I turn off the annotation so that there's no interruption. Can someone confirm that my screen is visible?
Yes, it is.
Thank you so much. Let me start the slideshow. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I am reviewing Dr. Khalil Andani's article, The Modern Resurrection of Nizari Ismaili Islam, The Reforms of the Aga Khan, published in the Oxford Handbook of Islamic Reform. Selected material from the article will be presented, providing an overview of long-standing reforms within the Ismaili community enacted by Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah Salawatullahi alayhi. Dr. Andani presents evidence of radical changes in Ismaili religious identity and ritual practice, and argues that the Ismaili Imam's authority is rooted in classical Ismaili understandings of the Imamate and the Qiyamah, two doctrines that effectively naturalize the ideas of reform and continuous reinterpretation as something inherent to the Ismaili tradition. We are reminded that according to Ismaili belief, the Prophet's religio-political powers continue in the chain of Imamat, such that every Imam is God's vicegerent with divine authority over legal, ritual, and spiritual dimensions. Without the Imam, Islam would remain incomplete, as it is the Imam's ta'wil that unveils the batin, thereby completing the Prophet's tanzil or revelation. While the work of prophets is centered around establishing the Sharia, the work specific to the Imams is to bring the Sharia to perfection, culminating in the cycle of Qiyamah, wherein great transformations take place. Summarizing Ismaili teachings on this point, Dr. Andani writes, according to Ismaili expectations, the era of Qiyamah would be inaugurated by a special Imam from the progeny of Muhammad, known as the Qayyim, who would publicly unveil the batin and ta'wil of Muhammad's Sharia, abrogate ritualistic dimensions of Sharia, end the need for taqiyya, and suspend the ranks of the Ismaili Dawah hierarchy. Dr. Andani then reviews a significant historical event, which can be seen as a preview of the paradise of Qiyamah. In 1164, Imam Hassan ala dhikrihi salam declared the Qiyamah had arrived. Henceforth, the pillars of Islam were to be observed at the level of Haqiqah, understood to be the perfection of the Sharia, even while appearing as its abrogation. At the level of Haqiqah or Qiyamah, emphasis was on the batin, together with a spiritual focus on the Imam, who was revered as the mazhar of God's word, through whom Marifah could be attained. Thus, Khwaja Nasiruddin Tusi, for example, explained that the batin of wuzu is to disassociate oneself from prior customs and abide by the Imam's guidance only. The batin of the Hajj is to abandon the perishable world for the sake of the eternal world and journey to the spiritual presence of the Imam. Sayyidina Tusi's explanation on the difference between the age of Sharia and the age of Qiyamah may help us understand Ismaili tariqah practice in our own time. He writes, the age of Shariat is the time in which worship is ordained at specific times, when the practice of external physical behavior is dictated and when acts of worship are completely absorbed in their specific temporal moment. This age is called the cycle of concealment. On the other hand, the age of Qiyamah is when specific times of worship are abrogated, when people are summoned unto God for his own sake, and when all the moments of life are completely absorbed in the practice of devotion. This age is called the cycle of manifestation. Now, as some may know, the Qiyamah doctrine was reversed after 46 years. In fact, Ismailis were ordered to practice the Sharia in its Sunni form. The reversal, which certainly enabled the Imam to enter into a much-needed political alliance with the Sunni Abbasids, was explained as taqiyya, or availing of the haqiqah due to the needs of the time. Dr. Andani astutely observed that two key theological principles thus emerged. First, the Imam of the time has full authority to reinterpret Islam, mandate and reverse religious laws, institute religious practices, and give guidance as he deemed appropriate. Second, the Qiyamah is not a literal end of the world, but an era of spiritual orientation, where Sharia rituals are not a requirement for salvation, can be altered or abolished, and replaced by haqiqi practices determined by the Imam of the time. In effect, writes Dr. Andani, the Imam has the absolute authority and freedom to reinterpret the faith and practice of Islam in such a way that he is bound neither by the Sharia nor by prophets and Imams, nor by prior prophets and Imams. This enables any given Ismaili Imam to situate his reforms as organic to the mandate of the Imamate and Ismaili tradition. With these key principles of Ismailism explained, Dr. Andani analyzes the reforms of His Highness Aga Khan III, whose 72-year imamate marked a watershed phase in the history of Ismailism. As the finest imam of the 7th cycle, Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah presided over radical religious reforms in ritual practice, consolidating the Ismaili identity of his followers around the world. We are given evidence of the Imam's guidance to Syrian Ismailis to discontinue Sharia rituals and to instead perform a special dua thrice a day. The Imam mandated continuous inward fasting from evil instead of outward fasting during Ramadan. The true significance of the Hajj was to see the living Imam instead of journeying to Mecca. Similarly, the Imam altered and abolished ritual practices of Persian Ismaili communities away from 12er Sharia form and replaced them with what was formerly private esoteric Ismaili rites, now meant for the congregation as a whole. Dr. Andani cites Dr. Rafiq Keshavji's important unpublished PhD dissertation, from which we learn that it was no longer meritorious for Ismailis to go to Mecca because God, rather than his house, was to be worshipped. They ceased praying in the orthodox manner and followed the prayers ordered by the Imam. They stopped performing the ritual ablution before prayers because true ablution was cleansing of the heart. They were not to observe the fast of Ramadan because the true fast was abstention all year from evil. And finally, all the recommendations, prescriptions, and proscriptions to be followed were to be those issuing directly from the Imam. This is how they interpreted the Furu'id-Din, the auxiliaries of the faith. By framing Sharia practices as Furu'id-Din, or the branches of religion, as opposed to the Asul al-Din, the essentials of religion which never change, the Imam effectively recategorized the Sharia rituals to a non-essential status for the Ismailis. As such, they could be altered or replaced at the discretion of the Imam. As Dr. Keshavji confirmed, the rituals of the esoteric doctrine, the sessions of dhikr previously performed in addition to the rites of the Sharia, now stood alone, claiming to replace rather than leave in the rites of the Furu'ud-Din. A final major reform serves as a critical proof in the proper understanding of the unique role of Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah al-Hayyul Qayyum. In the early 1900s, in response to a schism amongst the Ismailis of Iran, the Imam suspended the entire Ismaili Dawah hierarchy of the Hudud-e-Din, a major religious institution that mediated the Imam's physical and spiritual authority. As most of the physical dawah ranks had by then become hereditary instead of deriving from spiritual merit, the authority of the ranks like Hujjah and Da'i were abolished. The Imam declared the end of all the Hudud-e-Din, and all Ismailis could reach him spiritually, directly, through their own effort, and none could inherit a spiritual rank from his father. Dr. Andani's research revealed that such an unprecedented change was actually foretold in Ismaili Dawah literature. According to Hamid al-Din Kermani, the Hujjat of Imam al-Hakim, the great Qiyamah will arrive when the Dawah is suspended by the Lord of the resurrection, because by that time the Dawah will attain its completion. The Qayyam will suspend the Hudud from their ranks. Likewise, interpreting a well-known hadith, goodness is knotted up in the forelocks of the horses till the day of resurrection, Hakim Nasir Khusro, the Hujjat of Imam Mustansir Billah, explains that the ta'wil of this is that the dawah will not be severed from the Hujjat, symbolized by the horses, and the da'is, symbolized by their forelocks, till the time of the Qayyam's manifestation. To be sure, the order to abolish the authority of the Hudud-e-Din marked a significant spiritual shift in the world of creation and in the world of religion. It would be incorrect, however, to perceive this grand command in a negative light. Rather, it signaled the Ismaili Murid's unmediated spiritual access to and recognition of the Imam's physical identity and spiritual reality. As Dr. Keshavji confirms, the Hudud-e-Din collapsed into the Imam, and each and every person was granted the possibility of attaining his own Hud, of attaining a rank as exalted as the greatest of the Ismailis of history. This too, in fact, was alluded to by Hakim Nasir Khusro, who revealed that during the cycle of the Qayyam, the believers receive benefit directly from the 5 spiritual Huds, the universal intellect, the universal soul, Jad, Fat, and Khayal. Concluding this section of his article, Dr. Andani observes that Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah's reforms evoke and embody long-awaited Ismaili eschatological expectations. Various Ismaili da'is foretold signs of the promised era of resurrection, prominent among which were 3 great changes: the curtailment of the ritual Sharia, a major unveiling of the batin and hakiki forms of worship together with the end of taqiyya, and the suspension of the Hudud-e-Din. Interestingly, in his first firman to the Jamaat, Mawlana Sultan Muhammad Shah Salawatullahi alayhi described the period of his imamat using what Dr. Andani called eschatological language. This is the end of the age, akhir az-zaman, said the Imam. And those with faith will see their Imam's power and wonders. But those without faith, in spite of seeing manifest wonders, will not believe. Before ending, it should be mentioned that in making these connections between the Ismaili concept of Qiyamah and the actions and pronouncements of Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah, Dr. Andani is not alone. In 1993 and 2000, the French scholar Michel Boivin published articles claiming Aga Khan III performed the role of the Qayyam and implemented the Qiyamah in line with Ismaili expectations. While the paradise of the Qiyamah of 1164 may have been short-lived, we are assured that between 1885 and 1957, Sultan Muhammad Shah also reactivated the great resurrection proclaimed at Alamut in declaring that the true believer can here and now attain to paradise during his lifetime, which constitutes a real return to the Alamut tradition. Alhamdulillah and Ya Ali Madad.
Thank you, Khair Ali Sahib, for such a precious intellectual contribution to the Jashn Mubarak.
मीठे ने दमन जुबली सरकार अली बई मी वक्त इमाम हैदर कर्रार अली बई मौला सिरे जगमिन दुकोयल इन शुलगन हैं किन हजरत सुल्तान खबरदार अली बई. Now, I would like to invite Sumaira Khan and the group from Canberra, Australia to present an Arifana Kalam on this beautiful occasion. Sumaira Khan and group.
Subhanallah, Subhanallah. Thank you very much, Sumera, and everyone who participated in this melodious presentation of Ustad Buzurgwar, Allama Nasiruddin Nasir Hunzai Sahib's Arifana Kalam.
Now we have Salman Iqbal from Chitral, Pakistan to edify us about the speech made by Mawlana Sultan Muhammad Shah Salawatullah Alayhi at Cairo on 20th February 1955 in reply to the address given by the African Legion on the celebration of completion of 70 glorious years of Imamate. Salman Iqbal from Chitral, Pakistan.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Yali Madad to everybody. I am Salman Iqbal from Chitral. Please accept a warm Salira Mubarak. Today, on this auspicious occasion of Jashn Wiladat Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah, I would like to make a humble attempt to review the particular piece of speech of Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah, which has been taken from his response to the African Legion on the occasion of Platinum Fund for the celebration of glorious platinum of 70 years of Imamat at Cairo on February 25, 1955. In the beginning of the speech, by extending gratitude to all leaders in Jamaat for their generous offering, Imam explains that this offering will be submitted to the Platinum Jubilee Investment Trust Limited in order to better utilize them. While sharing his view on his 70 years of Imamat, he declared it a historical event in the history of Smiley Imamat having that opportunity to serve the Jamaat. Imam beautifully related this with the changing world from ancient and classical periods to modern era, where life has drastically changed almost in all aspects due to science and technology. Moving further, Imam has carefully analyzed spiritual enlightenment and material intelligence or intellectualism. Imam considers spiritual aspect of life is always fundamental, and he is of the views that all Ismailis are fortunate enough having good understanding of Islamic spiritual enlightenment philosophy, which is in fact an understanding of Islam, which is in fact a comprehensive evidence of its correctness. And from this important domain, the humanitarian concept like love, tenderness, kindliness, and gentleness towards Muslim and other human beings evolves, he further added. Finally, Imam shared his views that his murid must not forget the necessity of re-examination of art and religious experience, which is one of the significant understanding Ismaili Tariqa. At the end, with this, I'm concluding my review. Thank you so much, and Yali Madad.
Marhaba Salman, marhaba. You made the memorable moments glimpse through our sight one more time. Thank you. Danish, do you know what important message Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah Salawatullah Alayhi gave to the Ismaili Jamaat in the Platinum Jubilee souvenir on 12 December 1953?
I think I haven't heard the message. Could you please share it with me?
Well, we do have someone who can share much better than me about the special memorabilia. representing you Parsali Sahba from Toronto, Canada, to share the message of Platinum Jubilee Souvenir 1953.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Ya Alimadat to everyone and Jashn Mubarak. My discussion today will pertain around Hazrat Imam Aka Sultan Muhammad Shah alayhi salam's Ismaili Souvenir Platinum Jubilee message. Let us begin by reading the extracts of the speech made by Mawlana Sultan Muhammad Shah in reply to the address given by the African Legion on February 20th, 1955. Quote, "Leaders of the Legion and all beloved spiritual children of Africa, on this unique occasion when you make this wonderful offering of platinum and its equivalent as an unconditional gift, I must immediately tell you that I give it to the Diamond Jubilee Investment Trust Limited as further addition to its capital. You refer to my 70 years imamate, which indeed is unique in the history of the 48 Ismaili Imams by its long duration. But also, it began in another world, the world of horse carriages and candlelights. And today, we are in the world of nuclear power, physics, jet air travel, and serious discussion among the most learned as to how and when we can visit the stars and the moon. But as I have explained in my memoirs, for the whole world to understand, there are two worlds, the world of material intelligence and the world of spiritual enlightenment. The world of spiritual enlightenment is fundamentally different from the world of material intellectualism. And it is the pride of Ismailis that we firmly believe that the world of spiritual enlightenment has come as a truth from the inception of Islam to this day with the imamate and carries with it as one of its necessary consequences, love, tenderness, kindliness, and gentleness towards first, our brother and sister Muslims of all sects, and secondly, to those who live in righteousness, conscience, and justice towards their fellow men. These religious principles of Ismailism are well known to you, for you have heard them from me and through your fathers and grandfathers, and from my father and grandfathers, until I fear that by long familiarity with these teachings, some of you forget the necessity of re-examination of your heart and religious experience." Unquote. As we can see in this speech, Mawlana Sultan Muhammad Shah discusses how unique his imamate was in the history of the 48 imams in many ways. Let us take a look at what made his imamate so unique. Firstly, not only did Mawlana Sultan Muhammad Shah have the longest imamate in history, lasting a long 72 years, but there were a tremendous amount of scientific discoveries which took place during his imamate. Let us take a deeper dive into what these discoveries consisted of. For example, in 1879, we had the invention of the light bulb by Thomas Edison. In 1891, we had the invention of motion picture camera, also by Thomas Edison. In 1937, we had the invention of the snowmobile by Armand Bombardier. And just like that, there were many more physical inventions that took place throughout the life of Mawlana Sultan Muhammad Shah, which can specifically be found on pages 68 to 81 in the book, The Bridge Between Two Epochs. Mawlana Sultan Muhammad Shah was the first for many things. He was the first to travel around the world, and in 1905, Mawlana Sultan Muhammad Shah issued a constitution that outlined the rules and regulations for the Ismailis in East Africa. This was actually one of his approaches to modernization. As we can see, Mawlana Sultan Muhammad Shah's life consisted of a very unique imamate. These scientific inventions, changes, and modernizations talked about represents some of the physical characteristics that made his life so unique. But what about in the spiritual sense? In reality, all of these inventions are mere indications of the spiritual world. Consider, for instance, a power plant. It supplies us all with the energy needed to sustain our material lives. It supplies us all with this energy, and many of the things we do in our daily lives would not be possible without it. Similarly, in spirituality, the Imam of the time provides us with guidance in our physical and spiritual lives, which is essential for our spiritual well-being. Mawlana Sultan Muhammad Shah's imamate had started with horse carriages and candle lights, which was a very different point in time, which can be spiritually seen as the Dor-e-Satr. With our advancements in nuclear power, physics, and jet air travel, we can identify the second point in time as Dor-e-Satr, also known as the Akhir Zamana. Furthermore, we can see this as an indication of the Akhir Zamana in Mawlana Sultan Muhammad Shah's very first firman as the Imam at the young age of 7 years old in Darkhana, Bombay on 1st September 1885, where he said, "This is the end of the age, and those who are faithful will behold the power and miracles of their Imam of the age. But those who are half-hearted ones will, however, behold the miracles publicly, but falsify them." As we can see, Mawlana Sultan Muhammad Shah gave an early indication about the Akhir Zamana. Further evidence of Mawlana Sultan Muhammad Shah's unique imamate can also be found in Mawlana Shah Karim al-Husseini Hazar Imam's Firman, made in London, UK on July 26, 1957. This is a sad and a very happy occasion for me. I see you for the first time since my beloved grandfather departed this world physically. You have lost the finest Imam we have had, and I have lost a grandfather who was more devoted than any grandfather a man has ever had. I hope you do not think that because he is not physically with us, that he won't watch over you. In my time, I will do everything in my capacity to be worthy of and to see that the community lives very well and that the welfare of the community, I will see, is set on the lines my grandfather has set for you. This firman indicates the great achievements Mawlana Sultan Muhammad Shah made during his lifetime. The idea of uniqueness here, although, does not imply that the Nur was any different from the other Imams. Rather, it is the uniqueness of their manifestation, both in time and space. Mawlana Hazar Imam continues his teachings according to the present day and in accordance to his manifestation. In this way, he also encourages us to appreciate Allah's creation around us and how it relates to science. This can be noted in Mawlana Hazar Imam's Firman made in Toronto, Canada on the 17th of November, 2017. Fortunately, science is teaching us more and more about Allah's creation every day. But I do not believe that the miracle of humanity is one that will ever be totally understood. And why should we pretend to have the intellectual vanity to understand everything which is around us? Let us be intellectually respectful, intellectually humble, intellectually curious, intellectually well-directed. But let us not pretend that the dimension of human knowledge has no limits. As we know, there are two worlds, the world of material intelligence and the world of spiritual enlightenment. The world of material intelligence is what has been discussed thus far. As Ismailis, we strongly believe in the world of spiritual enlightenment. This belief has been continuous since the beginning of time. In Surah 24, Ayat 41, it is said, "Each one knows its salat, prayer, and tasbih, glorification of God.
This verse implies how the salat and tasbih and doing ibadat on a daily basis based on the Imam's guidance is what will enable our batini eyes to reveal the wonders of the spiritual enlightenment. Spiritual science is the key to understanding God's wisdom-filled secrets, which can only be understood by the perfect man himself. Ultimately, it is up to the people whether they worship him or not, but internally, he compels them to follow the path of guidance and worship. This takes place in the personal world of the perfect man. Furthermore, in regard to the concept of spiritual enlightenment, it must be known that there is always going to be a divine guide who is the perfect man himself. And this divine guide understands God's guidance in its entirety. We can see this specifically in the memoirs of Aga Khan, where Mawlana Sultan Muhammad Shah says, quote, all Islamic schools of thought accepted as a fundamental principle that for centuries, for thousands of years before the advent of Muhammad, there arose from time to time messengers illumined by divine grace for and amongst those races of the earth which had sufficiently advanced intellectually to comprehend such a message. Thus, man's soul has never been left without a specially inspired messenger from the soul that sustains, embraces, and is the universe. Moreover, in Surah 16, ayat 89, God says, and we have revealed to you the book as an explanation of everything and a guidance, a mercy and a glad tidings for those who submit. It is evident in this verse that the Quran consists of all necessary and useful sciences, and there is nothing outside of its knowledge and wisdom and spirit and spirituality. I'd like to conclude this presentation with the Quranic verse from Surah 41, ayat 53, where it says, we shall show them our signs in the external world and in their souls until it will be manifest to them that he is true. It is therefore evident that Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah's unique imamate represents a momentous historical event. His lifetime was dedicated to conveying the continuous importance of the divine guide, both in regards to spiritual enlightenment as well as material intelligence. Thank you all so much for listening, and Ya Ali Madad.
Jazakillah Parsali Sahiba. Thank you for reminding us such an important message of Mawlana Sultan Muhammad Shah, Salawatullah alayhi. It's time to play an advertisement we have made about Monoreality website. Let's view what this website contains. recall that Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah Salawatullah alayhi called the first Ismaili Association Mission Conference in Dar es Salaam back in year 1945. The objectives of the conference were to establish an Ismaili Association for Africa, independent from the Association of Bombay in India, to make the professional missionaries in Africa free from India. And what the special guidance Mawla Salwat rendered for the leaders and attendants during the conference? Let's hear it from Naila Gulshan from Hunza, Pakistan.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ya Ali Madad and happy Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah Salawatullah alayhi's birthday to all of you. I am Naila Gulshan from Hunza, Pakistan. On this auspicious day, I have prepared the review of extract from an address by Mawlana Sultan Muhammad Shah Salawatullah alayhi at the Ismaili Association Mission Conference held at Dar es Salaam in July 1945. In July 1945, Hazrat Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah Salawatullah alayhi welcomed the Jamaat with joy, who attended the Ismaili Association Mission Conference held at Dar es Salaam in Africa. Thereafter, Hazrat Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah Salawatullah alayhi expressed regret about all the missionaries and religious activities by saying that a person like Dr. Ivanov of Russia knows more about the Ismaili religion and its meaning than most of our Bhagats put together and many of our leading gentlemen. A man like Mr. Faisi, a Bohra gentleman of the Islamic Research Association, knows more about the Ismaili religion than most people of this faith. After that, Imam Salawatullah alayhi thanked and appreciated Mr. Mackay for establishing of Islamic Research Association and getting men like Dr. Ivanov and Mr. Faisi to look into the ancient documents. Imam Salawatullah alayhi announced to start Ismaili Association in Africa free from India on the same lines as the Bombay Association and to develop a new system of recruiting honorary and voluntary missionaries. Thereafter, Imam Salawatullah alayhi explained through examples that very little of our religion is generally known and most of our people are ignorant of our faith. One of the missionaries advised against attempting to debate with atheists about religion. Imam agreed with this point and clarified that Islam and Ismailism are based on Iman and Mu'min. It is best not to debate with atheists. Imam clarified that Iman means faith. Religion is simple for those who are fortunate enough to have faith, but there is no hope for those who lack Iman. You can obtain Iman by requesting it through prayer. I realized that when Mu'min used to argue with agnostics, he would waste time and erode his own faith. Mu'min is not allowed to debate with such people according to the Imam. Imam Salawatullah alayhi also makes it clear that Mu'min is not necessary to be a philosopher. It implies that neither every Mu'min will be a scholar, nor be he responsible to separate the religion. Genuine love may be tested by a believer, but denier is blind to it. It is incredibly difficult to explain the joy of heavenly love to unbelievers. Some people of our own religion are unaware of our faith. One of the major missionaries, Juma Bhagat, and other Ismailis met with the Imam and requested that the word fish be removed from dua. Imam said, "Mr. Juma, do you want to discard one of the fundamentals of the faith?" Imam further said, "God was there, stood as a witness when there was nothing but fish on earth." Juma Bhagat and other Ismailis expressed their acceptance and moved on. The word fish is also mentioned in the Quranic verse 37 by 139 to 148. Allama Buzurgawar has explained the ta'wil of the story of Hazrat Yunus and the fish in a book. He wrote, "Fish has several ta'wils, but one ta'wil is the universal soul." Thus, this great fish means universal soul has swallowed Hazrat Yunus and spewed him out in the plane of the universal intellect. Imam Salawatullah alayhi explained another real story about the ignorance of our faith by our own people. Many Ismaili people met with Imam and requested to add one word in dua, and then they said everything is alright. When Imam asked them what that one word is, they said, instead of Ali Allah to say Aliyun Waliullah. Imam answered them with full anger that they better drop the whole dua if they want to alter that word. Imam further said, you are ignorant. It's your ignorance, not that Ali Allah is wrong. Imam referred his farman to read that have made in Bombay 1905 to 1906, where Ismailism is defined. Imam differentiates the Ismaili religion from other religions and explained its righteousness. If we took the example of Christianity, they believed that Jesus was God during his 33 years of life. For Ismailis, Hazrat Ali was a prisoner in this limited material world for 60 years of his life on earth, but he came from God and returned to God. The greatness of Ali is boundless and transcends this materialistic world. Allama Buzurgawar says in his Brushski Diwan about the greatness of Hazrat Ali, Munkir ke nakirar osham asan jawaban, Munkir ke nakirar osham asan jawaban, in mazhari kul noor khuda jar Ali vai. Meaning, I will tell the denier and the denied the easiest answer that the manifestation of the whole universe and the noor of God for me is Ali himself. Imam quoted the ayat, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, and explained through an example of river and ocean. According to the Ismaili religion's belief, Allah is the ocean, and Ali on earth throughout his time was a river separated from the ocean of Almighty and was now rushing back toward it, overcoming all obstacles of the earthly world. Shariati people do not understand this. Imam emphasizes that Hakikati people should understand the meaning of this ayat. This ayat is not for only Hazrat Ali, but for all Mu'mins. Every Mu'min is a small stream on earth and joins the river to the ocean. This is the doctrine of Ismailism. Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah Salawatullah alayhi enlightened one of the stories of Pir Hassan at the conference. Pir Hassan, who was very rich and well off, was told by a Jew that he was living in heaven on earth. Turning to face the Jew, Pir Hassan remarked that if the Jew only understood the difference between the moment the angel of death would offer a message of death and the material benefits he observed, he would realize that Hassan was subject to the restrictions of hell in this life. Material life is temporary. It will remain maybe at a maximum of up to 100 years, but the world of the soul is forever. So, we must be careful about the soul, which is eternal. Mawlana Hazir Imam also gives priority to spiritual life. Mullah says, keep in mind that physical life is a process which ends. And when it ends, the only matter which remains from the individual and which is eternal is the soul. So do not forsake the spiritual for the material. Ruhani zindagi gane rozana her chaba, Ruhani zindagi gane rozana her chaba, Altul ki zindagi bewafa, Ya Ali Madad. At the end, Ya Ali Madad to all of you.
Marhaba Naila Sahiba, you may belong to a remote habitation, but you are indeed an international contributor now.
Now, I would like to invite Mashal Amin from Karachi, Pakistan to please come forward and carry us to the second quarter of this memorable celebration by educating us about Mawlana Sultan Muhammad Shah Salawatullah alayhi's special guidance regarding the essence of religion, Usul-e-Deen. Mashal Sahiba, whenever you are ready.
Ya Ali Madad, everybody. I will be reviewing the Usul-e-Deen Farman by Hazrat Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah Salawatullah alayhi. This Farman was made in Dar es Salaam in May 1899. It is a long farman, but with Maula's spiritual guidance, I will try to do as much justice as I can. It starts by saying, I am speaking to you about the usul-e-din, which means the principles of faith. The usul-e-din are like the kernel of a tree. The kernel is the softest or the central part of a fruit. It is only from the kernel, like a walnut kernel, that you will be able to grow another walnut tree. Imam says, every man is ultimately inclined towards the usul or the essence. Imam is talking about the fundamental principles of the Ismaili tariqah. So how do we get to know about our tariqah? Or what is our foundational belief? The answer is to ask and to think. Who are we? What is our soul? Who is the creator? How can our soul become one with the origin? This is the underlying fundamental principle of the Ismaili tariqah. Imam is asking us to think about the value of our soul. You all know that Mawlana Hazir Imam in every farman says that your body is not permanent. Only your soul is permanent. The only part of human being which is eternal is soul. Imam has given us the examples of very well-known people in our tariqah, like Hazrat Isa alayhi salam, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, Pir Shams, Pir Nasir Khisro, Mawlana Rumi, and like Mansurul Hallaj. This is to give us an understanding that they were also like us, normal human beings. They also had the worldly life and their families, of course. How did they manage to do it? They achieved the spiritual elevation, spiritual enlightenment. The Imam tells us that they all had the dominant impulse. They were all strongly in love with their own souls. So here, Imam did not say they loved Allah or the Prophet or the Imam. No, he said they all loved their own souls. So which soul? Definitely the highest soul, which is in the Imam of the time. They were in love with the divine spirit, the Ruhul Quddus. This divine soul is in all human beings, but in a potential form. It has not become actual yet. He gives us examples of people who ignore their higher soul, their Anaye Ulvi, or their origin. He gives us two strong examples. I will explain the first one in detail here. So the first is an example of a bird. People keep birds as pets and they provide them with beautiful cages. It is given food, water, and different toys to play with. All the needs are being fulfilled within the cage. Eventually, the bird gets habituated to this life and begins to enjoy it. Slowly and gradually, the bird has no desire to go back to its origin or to be able to fly again. This is simple but a very powerful example to show the status of us human beings today. We are like birds in a cage. We used to be able to fly, but because we are happily habituated, we have forgotten how to fly and how to be independent. The second example is of a slave with the same message. In this farman, Imam asks, do you want to remain a slave forever? Then he gives a strong message that any thinking person would never want to remain a slave. A thinking person, or a person who uses their intellect, they would like to become the master. In this farman, Mawlana Sultan Muhammad Shah Salawatullah alayhi is talking about becoming perfect, becoming complete, and not remaining incomplete or imperfect for the rest of our lives. So in order to be perfect, what do we need? The Farman gives us all the important points. Firstly, he says, he doesn't see spiritual courage in Jamaat. If we read the stories of Hazrat Isa, Hazrat Muhammad, or Pir Shams, they had very difficult lives. They had to struggle a lot. It was not easy because all the other human beings around are completely involved in the material world. But you want to be different, and it's not easy to be different. It's much easier to be like others. Spiritual courage is very important, and this is something we have to pray for. And then in another place, Imam says, you need true knowledge. Our souls can only rise step by step if it has true knowledge. This true knowledge can only come from the Imam of the time. What is the distinctive part of true knowledge? It gives us the correct concept. If we think it's good to be a slave, we will remain a slave. Or it's good to be an ordinary human being, we remain this way. But that's a wrong concept. If we know by the true knowledge that we have a divine spark within us, we have a potential Ruhul Quddus, only then we will try to reach that height and make that potential into actual. The third condition is ibadat of the night time. That ibadat is very important. But here again, the concept is important. Are we getting up in the night or early morning for ibadat only because we're afraid of going to hell? Or are we doing so because we want to go to paradise? Both these concepts are wrong. Ibadat should not be out of fear of hell or out of greed for paradise. It should be out of pure love, or the love of the Noor of God. Then Imam talks about the cleanliness of the soul and its purity. Today, Hazir Imam gives the same message using different words. Imam says, the ethics of our faith, the ethics of Islam, do not lie, do not cheat, do not hurt others. These are the ethics of Islam. If you want to progress in ibadat, follow the farameen of Imam rigorously. Other thing he says is we should cry for didar like a small child. A child who has been separated from his mother. In the last, none of this is possible without the Imam of the time, who is the Insan-e-Kamil. We have to seek Imam's help, but the Imam's help only comes when we follow his farameen. Imam says, those who have only superficial knowledge, they believe that my job is to heal the sick. This is not my job. This is not my task. My task is to show you the way to the truth so that you may achieve your real destiny, which is Fana Fillah. To be Fana Fillah is to lose oneself in God's essence. This is the Taaleem of the Imam of the time. An important sentence to quote from Imam's Taaleem is, the Imam's Taaleem lights the murid's path to spiritual enlightenment and vision. The words are different, but the message remains the same. It is only about our soul, which is eternal. Mawla then ends the Farman with prayers. He says, I pray from my heart that God may grant such strength to you that you may achieve freedom, that you may reach the haqiqat and turn away from evil. I pray that you may follow the path of righteousness and have the gift of the inner vision of truth. This prayer means more than any other prayer. These are Imam's words. If we bring this whole Farman together, it is all about this Farman of Mawlana Ali alayhi salam. Man arafa nafsahu faqad arafa rabba. I will end here with a verse by Ustaz-e-Buzurgwar Qaddasallahu Sirrahu. रूह की पहचान में जन्नत भी है दीदार भी ताजो तख्ते सल्तनत भी इल्म का दरबार भी. Thank you very much. Ajizana Ya Ali Madad Kabul.
Jazakillah mashallah. Thank you very much for shedding light on this fundamental and very important topic. In fact, Usuluddin is the centrality and the origin for everything that exists.
Mawlana Sultan Muhammad Shah Salawatullah alayhi writes about his life in his memoirs called My Life in Many Ways Has Been a Bridge Across Vastly Differing Epochs, unquote. It is time for me to take the opportunity to present on behalf of the whole team of Metroville Youth Classes Karachi, Pakistan, a short documentary about the exemplary life events of Mawlana Sultan Muhammad Shah Salawatullah alayhi. I hope you will enjoy and remember everyone in your precious prayers who contributed during the preparation of this documentary.
His Highness the Aga Khan III, Sultan Muhammad Shah, was born in Karachi on Friday, November 2nd, 1877. When the auspicious news of his luminous birth was conveyed to his august grandfather, Hazrat Mawlana Shah Hassan Ali al-Husseini, the Imam said, "Call him by the name Muhammad Sultan. He will be the Sultan of the world, and outstanding events will take place during his time. He will be renowned throughout the world." Truly, his noble life of 80 years has been full of miracles from the very first day. While remembering him for his educational, social, political, and religious contributions to the world, let's count a few of them. Certainly, counting his myriad legacy of contributions is impossible.
Mawlana Sultan Muhammad Shah Salawatullah alayhi became the 48th Imam of Ismailis when he succeeded his father Imam Agha Ali Shah.
Mawla Sultan was given the title of His Highness by the British government just a year after Mawla's succession as Imam. Mawla at a very younger age of 16 acted as a mediator between different Hindu and Muslim leaders to bring about peace between them.
Mawla visited M. Aligarh College and had a meeting with Sir Syed Ahmad Khan and assured him full cooperation for the establishment of Aligarh University.
This same year, Mawla visited England to attend Diamond Jubilee of Queen Victoria.
In 1897, during the Great Famine in India, Imam donated thousands of tons of food and gave employment to thousands of jobless people by constructing the Yeruda Palace, Aga Khan Palace at Pune.
During the epidemic of bubonic plague, people in India, due to age-old prejudice, were refusing to be inoculated.
The Imam set an example and allayed fears by publicly getting inoculated himself and by getting all the Ismailis to do so. He provided Professor Hopkins all facilities for this campaign, and this helped save many lives.
Mawla married Shehzadi Begum in year 1897.
Mawla Sultan visited London and was awarded with the title of the Knight Commander of Indian Empire by Queen Victoria.
Mawla made his first visit to Africa where the Sultan presented Imam the title of Brilliant Star of Zanzibar.
In the same year, Shah of Iran gave the title of Shamsul Humayun of Persia.
The Turkish government presented the title of Star of Turkey. Mawla visited Burma then for his first time.
Mawla continued his educational services, especially for Muslims in subcontinent, by presiding over the first Muslim educational conference at Delhi.
In his presidential speech, he called upon all the Muslims to contribute towards the establishment of Aligarh University and himself donated 35,000 rupees.
Mawla established the Aga Khan Foreign Scholarship Fund for the students of Aligarh College.
Mawla performed opening ceremony of Prince of Wales School of Science in Bombay and emphasized the importance of scientific education.
He presided over the second Muslim Educational Conference as well.
Mawla was also nominated to the Imperial Legislative Council of India and acted as chairman of the reception committee of the All Indian Muslim Education Conference.
Mawlana Sultan Muhammad Shah attended coronation of King Edward VII. The king met him thrice privately during the visit, and Mawla was made GCIE, Grand Commander of Order of Indian Empire.
A couple of years later, in 1906, Mawla Sultan headed Muslim deputation to Lord Minto, Governor General of India, and demanded the separate rights for Muslims.
The same year, Muslim League came into being in Dhaka as was suggested by Imam. Mawla was elected as the first president of Muslim League and remained president for 7 years.
Mawla Sultan appointed the first Ismailia Council of India after abolishing the previous committee known as Jashn. Its first president was Said Ibrahim.
Year 1908 registers a case of inheritance from Haji Bibi with its verdict in favor of Mawla Sultan given by Justice Russell. The same year also registers the second marriage of Mawla Sultan with Princess Teresa, mother of Prince Ali Khan.
In 1910, a report was presented to the Imam on behalf of Anjuman-e-Islam in Bombay. He also presided over the annual session of Muslim League. The same year, he was presented an address by both Shia and Sunni Muslims of India in appreciation of his services to the cause of Islam.
In 1911, Mawla was created GCSI, Grand Commander of Star of India.
The same year, Imam collected 3 million rupees for Aligarh Muslim University. Mawla also called Hindu-Muslim Unity Conference at Allahabad. Mawla also presided over the next session of the Muslim Educational Conference and emphasized the importance of primary education.
On June 13, 1912, Prince Ali Khan, father of Mawlana Shah Karim al-Hussaini, was born at Turin.
Mawla Sultan paid a visit to Russia for the first time. Mawla visited Burma again in 1914 as well. In 1916, he was granted by the British government a salute of 11 guns and rank of first class Prince of Bombay.
Mawla Salwar presented to Aligarh College Library a valuable treasure of books which included books on English, Urdu, Persian and Arabic literature.
Mawla wrote India in Transition and dedicated the book to his beloved mother.
Imam was granted the honorary degree of LLD by Oxford University.
Due to Imam's untiring efforts, Aligarh College was finally upgraded into university and he became Vice Chancellor of the Aligarh University.
In 1923, Mawla Salwat was created GCVO.
In 1924, Council of State in India recommended him for Nobel Peace Prize.
Mawla presided over All India, All Parties Muslim Conference at Delhi.
Mawla attended Round Table Conference in London as chairman of British Indian delegation.
Mawla met Mahatma Gandhi at Ritz Hotel, London in an effort for Hindu-Muslim understanding.
Mawla represented India at the World Disarmament Conference in 1932. In the same year, led the Indian delegation to the League of Nations and again in 1934, 1935, 1936 and 1937.
Though in December 1926, Princess Teresa left this material world, but in 1929, Mawla Salwat married Billy Henry Curran, and from her in 1933, Prince Sadruddin was born.
on the political canvas of the world, Mawla appeared on quite a number of more occasions with his usual distinguished position and honor.
Mawla was made a Privy Councillor in 1934. He was elected President of the League of Nations. He also attended coronation of His Majesty King George VI as British India's representative.
Mawla felicitated Quaid-e-Azam for the independence of Pakistan. Mawla was honored with the citizenship of Iran and awarded the title of His Royal Highness. Mawla visited Pakistan as well and offered Fataha at Mazar of Quaid-e-Azam.
Mullah Salwat paid a visit to Syria, where he was decorated with the title of Order of Umayyads. Mullah Sultan was presented with title of GCMC by Queen Elizabeth II of England.
In 1935, Mullah Pak completed Golden Jubilee, 50 years of Imamat, which was celebrated in Bombay by weighing him against gold on 19th of January 1936. In the same year, Mawlana Hazir Imam Shah Karim al-Hussaini was born.
In 1937, Prince Amin Muhammad was born in the Nurani family.
Mawla was weighed against gold by Ismailis in Nairobi, East Africa as well in 1937.
In 1944, Mawla married Habiba, who was honored by Mawla later in 1946, the title of Mata Salamat.
Mawla laid foundation of Ismaili Association in Africa as well. Mawla became patron of East African Muslim Welfare Society.
In 1945, Mawla completed Diamond Jubilee year of Imamat. Jamaat celebrated this auspicious occasion by weighing Mawla Pak against diamonds in Bombay as well as in Darussalam in 1946.
In 1948, Jamaat celebrated the longest Imamat.
Mawla Sultan was awarded the degree of LLD by Dhaka University in 1951. In 1954, the book written by Mawla Sultan, The Memoirs of Agha Khan, was published.
On February 3, 1954, Platinum Jubilee was celebrated in Karachi, followed by the Platinum Jubilee celebration in Cairo on 20th of February 1955.
On 10th July 1957, Mawlana Sultan Muhammad Shah passed away at the age of 80 years. Mawla's birth centenary celebrations were carried all over the world in year 1977.
Now, we would like to invite Sakina Rahim from Houston, US to please come forward and share her review of an excerpt from Mawla's memoirs, Islam, the Religion of My Ancestors.
Ya Ali Madad. Today I will be presenting the Islamic Doctrine of Soul explained by Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah Salawatu alayhi salam. Memoirs of Aga Khan III has a very important chapter titled Islam, the Religion of My Ancestors. It consists of many concepts such as continuation of divine guidance, Islamic concept of creation, concept of monoreality, concept of soul, and spiritual progress possible for human beings. My name is Sakina Rahim Momin, and I am 11 years old, so these topics are very difficult for me to explain, which is why I have chosen only one concept, and that is Islamic concept of soul, as explained by Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah on page number 177 in the memoirs. Islamic doctrine goes farther than the other great religions, for it proclaims the presence of the soul, perhaps minute but nevertheless existing in an embryonic state and in all existence in matter, in animals, trees, and space itself. Every individual, Every molecule, every atom has its own spiritual relationship with the all-powerful soul of God. But men and women, being more highly developed, are immensely more advanced than the infinite number of other beings known to us. Islam acknowledges the existence of angels, of great souls who have developed themselves to the highest possible planes of the human soul and higher, and who are centers of the forces which are scattered throughout the universe. Explanation of the quote. Islamic doctrine is more advanced than other great religions because Islam is the final revelation. For example, at this time, I am sitting in front of this laptop delivering this presentation, and physically, there is nothing between this laptop and me, but soul is present here too. In the memoirs, it has been stated that every individual, every molecule, every atom has its own spiritual relationship with the all-powerful soul of God. Let's take the example of the very lower rank, which is rocks and stones. Soul is present in an embryonic form in the rocks. How do we know that there's a soul in the rocks? In rocks, soul is sleeping. If the rock is broken up into earth or soil, and if you put a seed into that soil, it will grow. This is the soul in embryonic form. Vegetative soul. The soul found in every growing thing is called the vegetative soul. It is also called the growing soul. Yes, there is only one soul in vegetation because it has capacity to grow. So it's a more advanced soul than rocks and minerals. Animal soul. There are two souls in non-speaking animals, the vegetative and the animal souls. This means that not only can the animal grow, it can also move from place to place. It can avoid any danger. It has the ability to make sounds, and it has some basic feelings. Human soul. Human life subsists on three souls, which are vegetative soul, the animal soul, and the human or rational soul. Respectively, the center or abode of the vegetative soul is the liver, that of the animal soul is the heart, and that of the rational soul is the cerebrum or the front part of the brain. The vegetative soul causes the body to grow. The animal soul is the source of feeling and movement, and the rational soul is the treasure of speech discernment. Angels. Angels are the souls who are progressed. Angels are the souls who are progressed. Our beloved Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah mentions in the chapter of memoirs on page 177, I quote, Islam acknowledges the existence of angels, of great souls who have developed themselves to the highest possible planes of the human soul and higher, and who are centers of the forces which are scattered throughout the universe. Holy Spirit. It is obvious that, let alone an ordinary human being, in fact, every rank of human being is inferior to the perfect man. What are the reasons for this spiritual difference? The reasons for the distinct and unique position of the perfect man, that is, the prophet or the imam in the world of humanity, is due to the Holy Spirit, which is granted to him and by which the soul necessarily remains pure. For the Holy Spirit has all the meanings of being pure and purifying. This Holy Spirit rests on the human or rational soul, and therefore its center is above the center of the rational soul. The forehead, which is the highest place in the human personality, and is the place of manifestation of spiritual miracles. Conclusion. In the end, I would like to conclude that we are so lucky that we have no despondency, for we can all progress higher and higher. While preparing this presentation, I came to learn that there is a dynamism in our religion, and we all humans can uplift our souls to the divine spirit. Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah Salawatullah alayhi salam mentioned in Usuluddin Farman of 1899. Once you are able to understand your real capacities and once you grasp the truth, you will be able to attain freedom. In order to understand the status of God, you must first understand your own status as man. What is the point of a man's life when he busies himself night and day with good deeds and accumulating wealth, and has to die in the end? What is the value of lifelong worship when it does not lead to liberty? The thinking man will never be satisfied with a partial achievement. Thank you, Ya Ali Madad.
Marhaba Skina Sahiba for sharing rubies and pearls, the intellectual ones. Certainly, this chapter from Mawla Sultan's divine pen contains knowledge which must be understood, these principles regarding life and faith. Mawlana Sultan Muhammad Shah graced Qasim Ali Jara's boy by writing forward for his book, Muhammad A Mercy to All Nations. Mawla in the forward writes, by placing obedience to Ulul Amr immediately after they took over and prophet, and he ensured that the faith would ever remain living, extending, developing with science knowledge, art and industry. Unquote. Let me request Uruj Fatima from Islamabad, Pakistan to share the gems she has packed from Mawla's writing and carries the last quarter of this Jashn Mubarak.
Yali Madad in Dasto Pabusi Tawaf Sujud Qabul to all of you. Jashn Mubarak to those who are attending this Jashn. My name is Uruj Fatma and I am from Imanabad Markaz. I'll be talking about Sultan Muhammad Shah Fadahu Arwahuna's foreword for the book Muhammad A Mercy to All Nations, written by Alhaj Qasim Ali Jaira's boy. Muhammad A Mercy to All Nations. In this book, the author Alhaj Qasim Ali Jaira's boy has depicted a vivid picture of the simple and noble life of Holy Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, giving opportunity for the audience to look into the spiritual, moral, and intellectual revolution his noble life has brought to this world. His in-depth understanding of the subject, commitment, and generosity to disseminating this knowledge could be appreciated by the fact that Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah Fadahu Arwahuna himself endorsed his efforts by writing the foreword for the book. Therefore, the ensuing narration is based on the overview of the important points from that foreword. According to the words of Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah Fadahu Arwahuna himself, by writing this book, Alhaj Qasim Ali Jaira's boy helped in developing the true perspective of the fundamental principles and true message of Islam. This message in its essence promotes the spiritual nature of humans. Besides, the Prophet ﷺ, in contrast to all the previous prophets, fully recognized the message of predecessors by admitting that no race, no culture, or a nation was left without a divine guide. Due to this reason, in addition to coexisting in history, in Islam, there is a great potential for the universality of the message in the future. For example, Allahu Akbar depicts an imagination of the greatness of Allah encompassing everything. That is, it maintains and sustains everything in a way as if everything physical or spiritual is emanating from the womb of this greatness. Thus,
The core message of Islam provides a reason for all the beings to aspire towards this eternal and all-encompassing unity. This message of universal unity also embeds in it the message of immense love and mercy. Therefore, the man could connect himself with this all-embracing power by the medium of humble prayers and by adopting those attributes like kindness and affection. But to accept this message, the intellect needs to be appreciated and accepted as a means to realize this blessing. However, the enemies were able to attack Islam by depicting that the practice of Islam, like fasting and prayer, etc., are irrelevant in the current or modern context. Like the schoolmen from the medieval times, the clergy in the Muslim world shape the Islamic thoughts and practices around the formalism, which were a far cry from the reality on the ground. Although the Renaissance has paved the way for the West to walk away from this metal slavery, but Islam is only recently inching towards that Renaissance. To counter this criticism of Islam, Mawla emphasizes on the realization of the underlying core universal principles, or that is, usulat of Islam as described, and the apparent form of furuat need to transform according to the context of time and space. The Muslim further need to understand that the Holy Prophet ﷺ only acted to provide the foundation of a long journey. He ceded the practice of prayers, fasting, etc., and human attributes like kindness to all the being, thus transforming the human values and ethical standards. Then he constituted the Institute of Ulul Amr, and by decreeing its obedience after him and God, the Prophet ﷺ ensured the evolution of faith and practices, making it ever living in the progressing context of time and space. The seeding of positive human attributes like patience, forbearance, and kindness, as H.G. Wells in his discourse on history admits that these attributes are much more prevalent in the Muslim societies compared to other societies. Social practices like marriages are deemed to be noble objectives, much more than a material tendency. Besides, marriages are not made sacred through a sermon of a clergy, as happens in the Christian or other worlds. So, Islam is rooted in reality much more than any other persuasion. Additionally, in marriages and other practices, free choice is considered to be the noblest trait of humans, providing the foundations of a vibrant and progressing society. Although Muslims have maintained the forms of fasting and prayer, etc., since the time of Prophet ﷺ, but for the faith to remain ever living in a changing context, the form should be adjusted according to the facts of life, as the Prophet ﷺ said, that his followers have to act according to the context of time, that is, Ibnul Waqt. So, in brief, this forward clearly envisages a vast potential of Islam for bringing harmony and peace in the world. This could be realized by following the Institute of Ulul Amr, thus adapting the practices of Islam according to the evolving context and promoting the spiritual appeal of Islam. Thank you so much for listening. This is all by my side.
Marhaba Uruz Sahiba for sharing precious treasures of knowledge. Zameen ke आसमान निसान ये रुल नूरे खुदा सुल्तान मोहम्मद मुस्तफ़ा सुल्तान अली मुर्तज़ा सुल्तान मोहब्बत गने बसन बुड्डोम जजई गोपचर रुअस मुश्किल उनर अपचर रुअस गोडोम अपिले मुश्किल कुशा सुल्तान. Now, I would like to invite Naseem Akhtar and her team to present an Arifana Kalam on this memorable occasion.
आए
Jazakumullah, Jazakumullah. It is time that every single one of us waits for in every Jashn. We wait for this moment to have someone to speak to us one more time, to appear on screen once again, to reveal and to share treasures what they have within. In fact, we can't have words, those can express their stature, but we do have something to recite every time we remember them. Ustad Buzurgwar Allama Sahib writes for them as Azbaraye Jashn Zarreen Maho Anjum aa gaye जब पिया पे यार जानी के तराजुम आ गए।
तर्जुमे को खुद पढ़े तो रो रहा था मैं कभी, वादिए हैरत में अज खुद खो रहा था मैं कभी।
वो कलम से गुलफिशां है और ज़बां से दुरफिशान, इल्म हिकमत के जहां में कामयाबो कामरान।
नाम नामी है फकीर और इल्म हिकमत में अमीर, तेरे इस इल्म अमल का सदका हो जाए नसीब।
एक जहाने इल्म इनके हाथ से आबाद है, इसमें जो भी बस रहा है शाद है आजाद है।
जंग इल्मी में न पूछो ज़र्बे समसा में अली, इल्म शमशीर अली है दस्त है नामे अली। Now we all request Dr. Faqir Muhammad Sahib and Dr. Rashida Noor Muhammad Sahiba to please grace us by sharing their thoughts on this Jashn Mubarak of A'zamul Aima Mawlana Sultan Muhammad Shah Salawatullah alayhi's birthday.
Ya Ali Madad to all of you, and may Khudawan bless all those who have presented and those who have organized this Jashn of Wiladat Hazrat Azamul Aimma. Alhamdulillah, the Khudawan enable us to offer this small token in the hudur of the Mawla Khudawan. Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah, there are many hidden pearls in the Jamaat among the youngsters, and we are really grateful to Mawla for his special ta'eed that in such a fluent English, the way you have presented, really from the bottom of our heart, many, many congratulations, and may Khudawan give you more and more strength and courage to continue this sacred mission. Brothers and sisters, you heard in the Usuluddin Farman of Hazrat Mawlana Sultan Muhammad Shah Fadahu Arwahuna that the source of spiritual elevation is only knowledge, and there is nothing else. And what type of knowledge? The knowledge which is teaching us, which is clarifying the batini and haqiqi position of the Imam of the time. As everybody knows that we have two aspects. One is the physical one and one is spiritual one. As far the physical aspect is concerned, there is no doubt that Imam and Prophets are also like other human beings. But as far their spiritual aspect is concerned, they are the possessors of the divine light, and to understand and recognize this aspect is the most important thing. And Mawlana Hazir Imam also in the present Jama, he has given this precious farman that is the most important and essential and the central teachings of the Ismailism is the recognition of the Imam of the time. And when Mawla mentions this recognition, Imam doesn't mean any physical aspect of Imam's recognition. Rather, this is the batini and the spiritual aspect of Imam. So therefore, Ustad Girami, he spent his precious life in order to gain this knowledge from the Imam of the time and the spreading in the Jamaat. And he has a very important message to all of us. The Ustad Grami has said, those who have been blessed with the taste of this knowledge, then it becomes their sacred duty throughout the life to gain again deeper and deeper knowledge and to give this knowledge to other members of the Jamaat. And that is the practical shukr guzari of this special knowledge, this sublime knowledge. And then he says, after tasting this knowledge, those who are neglecting this, then they will be in a great loss. And therefore, may Khudawand keep us far away from such losses and give us a strength to whatever we have learned from our Ustad Girami. Again, he has his precious pearls and like Sanadiq Jawahir, the casket of pearls, and many other books are there that we should study deeper and deeper. And the nature of this book is such, if you have once read a book, if you read it again, you will realize that you had never read this book, because that is the nature of the spiritual knowledge. The secrets which are hidden in these teachings are unfolding step by step, not all of a sudden. So this is our role, our sacred duty of all of us, that we should continue this mission which Ustad Girami has entrusted us, and we should pray for ourselves, for our brothers and sisters, to have again greater and deeper knowledge of what Ustad Girami has left for us. So may Khudawand bless us all. And again, once again, the many congratulations for your excellent presentations and for your excellent recitations. And may Khudawand bless you on all of us. Ameen. Ya Rabbal Alameen.
Yeah, Ali Mother, to all of those who are still online, I admire your patience and your perseverance. And I would also like to add just a few words of Mubarakbadi to all those who have participated. And Alhamdulillah, most of the centers have chosen the items which are in the Mawlana Sultan Muhammad Shah folder on the Monoreality website. And I am sure that all of you who have presented now from the documents which are there, you will all now say that you know that document better because you have engaged with it and you have shared the knowledge from it. Despite all the internet problems and whatever, we can see how everybody has actually looked at their choice document and they have really understood the essence of that document, which is very, very important. So I congratulate you all on that very, very much. I congratulate the moderators and the Center of Metroville and all those who assisted them for doing this Jashn, inviting people and organizing it all, the wonderful video, the wonderful presentations, the wonderful recitations. Despite the glitches in the internet, this has been a wonderful Jashn to celebrate the Jashn Wiladat of Hazrat Imul Azam Azamul A'imma Nur Mawlana Sultan Muhammad Shah Salawatullahi alayhi. As somebody who has been involved in some of the presentations, I have to also say that we need all of us to check our presentations with one other person in our own center and try to eliminate all small punctuation, capital letters, this type of mistakes, spelling mistakes, and then make our presentations really as perfect as we possibly and humanly can make them. And we should also practice how to present our presentation. This is particularly so for some of the young men in our organization. Young men should practice much more to present whatever they want to say in a way that can be conveyed to the audience much more clearly. So this is my feedback on this, and I would be very grateful if you all keep that in mind. I would like to hear from the people who participated whether doing what we did, choosing one document from the Monoreality website, how did it help you? And perhaps you can then share it with others so that they are also encouraged and inspired to go to the website. You saw the wonderful video, a promotional video of the website. There is a wealth of information there. If only you make it a practice, a habit to use it. Finally, because we have not had a book published ready, although one of them, which is a very big book, the Book of Healing, which is in the process of being published. So we did not have a book opening today, but I was reminded that we should actually have another look at a bridge between two epochs. I want to tell you something about this book. This book was written or prepared because Allama Buzurgwar said so. He once called me when I was in Karachi and he said, Betty, daughter, please do something on Mawlana Sultan Muhammad Shah. And from there, this book has come into existence. This book is therefore very important. He himself in the city of Austin in USA, when I showed him a draft of one of the sections, he said, this book will go very far. And I would like to just concentrate on that for 1 minute, that how did this book go very far? We have only published 1,000 copies. It is a limited edition because it is a designer book and it was very expensive to publish it. And some people may even be a bit sad that we published it at this cost. For such people, I want to reassure them that we have more or less covered the amount that we have spent on this book because this book has been snapped up by the Jamaat. So how has it gone far, like Allama Buzurgwar predicted? First and foremost, before we published this book, we offered it as a e-book for the princely sum of $5. And do you know who was the first to download this book? The librarian at Mawlana Hazrat Imam's Secretariat, Eglamore. The librarian there was the first one to download this book there. Then secondly, to remind you, some of you, because not all of you are on Zara Sundarani Saiba's circulation list, some time ago, we circulated photographs and a short description of how this book, this very book, was presented to Princess Yasmin. And when she saw this book come out of the package, out of the paper, she said, oh, it's about my grandfather. Thirdly, this book, we were very, very lucky that this book was opened, introduced at the House of Lords, which is part of the Parliament of the United Kingdom. How could a small group like us, how did we end up having this function at the Houses of Parliament, in the House of Lords? And we didn't spend a single penny on that because the whole event was sponsored by an Ismaili who is a member of the House of Lords. His name is Lord Rumi Virji. When he saw this book, he said, my organization will sponsor it. Another point is that the other person at the House of Lords, my friend, Baroness Hilary Armstrong, when she looked at this book, she went straight to the section on women, the Faramin of Mawlana Sultan Muhammad Shah. She went to those Faramin and she read them for half an hour, all of them, while I was sitting in front of her. And then she looked up at me and she said, Rashida, these farmans are not only for Ismaili women, they are for universal usage. So these are all things, we have not shared too many of these things publicly because some people might think we are blowing our own trumpet. But I assure you there is no pride in this. There is but humility, and in fact, it is an acceptance of these miracles which are happening in this time of resurrection. So this book now, we have a few copies left only in the London Center, in the Toronto Center, in the Dallas and the Houston Center. Just a few copies. So if you know of anybody who would like to have this as a very important resource in their homes, then please make sure that you contact one of these centers for a copy. And the final point I want to make about this book is that many of the presentations use quotations from it, material from it, which was wonderful. But about the Faramin, the Farmans of Mawlana Sultan Muhammad Shah, who revolutionized the status of women in our Jamaat. About those Farmans, I have to tell you something. When I was translating them, in my heart, I was thinking of the younger generation of the Khoja Ismaili Jamaat, who cannot read Gujarati because they are in the original Gujarati language. But now, I find that these Varmans can be read by our Syrian Ismaili sisters, by our Iranian Ismaili sisters, by our Afghan Ismaili sisters, and by our northern areas Ismaili sisters, and Tajikistan, of course, because none of them know the Gujarati language. So these Farmans were not available to them, because those countries were not in contact with the Imam at that time. They have only come into contact halfway, more than halfway through Mawlana Hazir Imam's time, and he refers to them as the emerging Jamaats. So this book is something which you should talk about and persuade people to acquire a copy if they don't already have it. And if they can't afford to buy the physical book, the e-copy is in the Mawlana Sultan Shah folder in the website. So this is what I wanted to say today, and I thank Nasreen Akbar for reminding me that this is what we could do, because it was not in my mind. And I once again congratulate all of you for the wonderful work done. So as an optional item, you can play the video, the promotional video of the Monoreality website, and inshallah people can see that the Quran project is a very big project there. Apart from the folders of Mawlana Sultan Shah, Prince Ali Salman Khan, of Mawlana Hazir Imam, and then all the books, the audio books, the Q Wiki, many more things there. Yes, you can play that video again, and it's optional for people. Otherwise, the Jashn as such has come to an end with everybody's Mubarakbadis, which is wonderful.
Right, Mama. We are playing it right now, Mama.
Amin Sahib. Thank you very much, Dr. Sahib and Sahiba. It's never good enough to thank you for what you do for us, for the Ismaili Jamaat, and in fact for the whole humanity. Thank you once again. Alright, this concludes our Jashn Mubarak today. We are thankful to every single one who attended, participated, coordinated, or contributed to make this celebration possible. Thank you everyone, stay blessed and Jashn Mubarak. We may all greet with each other and yes, especially with Dr. Sahib and Rashida Sahiba. Ya Ali Madad to everyone, Ya Ali Madad.
Ali Madad, Mola Ali Madad, bless you all, Ya Ali Madad, Ya Ali Madad,
Ya Ali Madad.
Ya Ali Madad,
Ya Ali Madad.
Ya Ali Madad,
Ya Ali Madad.
Ya Ali Madad, Ya Ali Madad,
Ya Ali Madad,
Ya Ali Madad, Ya Ali Madad.